In this video we are going to take a closer look at the combat squad's ability commonly available to a lot of Space Marine and Deathwatch units. Over the course of the video we will first cover a few basic rules and talk about general pros and cons of the ability. In the second part we will then look into how to make best use of them in the Deathwatch, before concluding the video with a quick wrap up.
Welcome to SwissHammer, your channel for modeling in Warhammer 40k. My name is Tammer and I will be guiding you through this video.
Combat Squads is an ability commonly available to Space Marine units, allowing them to split into smaller, tactically flexible formations. In order to use Combat Squads, the unit must contain the maximum number of models, which can then be split into two units containing as equal a number of models as possible. For Space Marine infantry in particular, this usually means either 10 or 6 man units, which will then be split into 2x5 or 2x3. Fun fact, our unique kill team Cassius also has the combat squad ability, with the unit containing 9 models in total, which is one of those few times when an uneven split happens. Back in June 2021, GW released the Core Rules FAQ, which clarified precisely when combat squads have to happen. Basically, there is a 3-step subsequence of at the start of deployment, during deployment, and after deployment when playing a grand tournament game. The combat squad ability happens at the start of deployment and is therefore resolved at the start of the declare transport and reserve step of the game sequence. The full sequence can be found in the chapter approved 2022 mission pack, starting on page 4. The important part here for Deathwatch is that this affects the usage of our Teleportarium stratagem. Back in the days, I was trying to make a case that the Teleportarium stratagem can be used prior to combat squads, but as the more veteran viewers might remember, this is in fact not the case. I will leave you guys the link to the original video and the full rules discussion in the description below, and summarize as following. The usage of the stratagem happens during deployment, which is defined as happening any time between the start of the declared transports and reserve step, where combat squads happen, and the end of the deploy army step. By the power of the Oxford Dictionary, invoked by Rekkes from RulesHammer, the word during in reference to a timed event is exclusive, meaning at the start of deployment rules are finished by the time during deployment rules come into play, aka combat squads must have been declared by the time we are able to play the stratagem. Wish it were different, but that's how the rules as written are for the time being. On the bright side of things, the Rare Rules FAQ also confirms that specialisms remain active on both combat squads. This is covered in the section Splitting Units with Pre-existing Rules Effects on page 7 of the Core Rules FAQ. But anyway, I want to conclude this rules intro by saying that regardless of whatever general advice I am including in this video, the most important part is that by the time you have to declare the combat squads, you have a lot of information about the upcoming game. Armies, the mission, secondaries, all this can affect your decision to combat squad or not, even if you originally built your kill team with a very specific purpose in mind. With that out of the way, what are some of the general pros and cons for using combat squads? First of all, it allows you to be in 2 places at once, which can be important for elite-style armies and some of our expensive kill teams in particular. And perhaps a bit less important for Deathwatch is the matter of battlefield role slots, as our kill teams count as troops, but I think it is worth mentioning anyway. Including a max size unit split into combat squads takes up 1 battlefield role slot at the cost of a sergeant, while 2 minimum sized units take up 2. Another big advantage of combat squads is unit coherency, which I have covered in greater detail in a previous video. The link is in the description. Basically, with a combat squad of 5, you can still do daisy chains, while bigger units have more restrictive coherency rules. This is particularly useful for Deathwatch bikers used in kill teams. Another advantage is being able to avoid the blast room, which is the case if the size is 5 or less. There are also certain stratagems, for instance the ever popular transhuman, which cost less CP if the unit is at 5 or less models. Then on the flip side, we have of course the issue that any targeted boosts or benefits only apply to that one combat squad, while the other half won't benefit anymore. They can also become more fragile and therefore getting wiped out more easily, which by the way has become more important for the secondary objective to the last. It used to be that you would get full victory points for as long as a single model was still alive, regardless of combat squads, but now if one half gets wiped, you only get 3 instead of 5 victory points, so careful with that. Having said all that, how can we best make use of combat squads in the Deathwatch? Due to the sheer size of the topic, I am sticking to what I would consider established kill team compositions and or loadouts commonly seen in competitive play. First of all, let's start with a few examples of when not to combat squad. In the Army of Renown in particular, we have the 3CP Specialism Extremis stratagem as one of the main selling points. As we want to maximize its benefits, having a full kill team available is paramount. Popular examples of this are an Indomitor KT with aggressors and optionally a single bolter Inceptor, as well as the by now famous Costello-style Proteus KT. For the Indomitor KT in particular, be it Army of Renown or not, this one can also be used as a midfield bully unit, in which case it will be potentially backed up by additional characters like an apothecary, librarian powers, or an extra durability stratagem on the heavy intercessor sergeant. These are all good reasons to keep the kill team as one brick. The matter becomes a bit less transparent the moment we are looking at a Fortis kill team or even an Indomitor kill team with Eradicators. For the Fortis kill team, there used to be the popular 4 Outriders plus Intercessor Sergeant combo, which allowed the bikes to remain infantry and made them excellent for building chains with their larger bases. Now with the Army of Renown, I think a case could also be made to play such a kill team as one big brick, combined with Specialism Extremis. In that case, however, I think 5 Outriders is the way to go, as it allows the big kill team to remain at toughness 5. While I'm personally not a big fan of the Outriders, I think what I would do nowadays in an Army of Renown is simply to bring 5 Outriders anyway. Then if I wanted to combat squad, I would split 4 Outriders and the Intercessor Sergeant to keep the bike as infantry, and then just let the 5th Outrider chill with the Intercessors. In a non-Army of Renown, I would remain at 4 Outriders and just accept the fact that I will always combat squad them. Another example would be a Fortis kill team with Assault Hellblasters. Personally, I like to keep them together as one big unit, having the intercessors act as ablative wounds and making it easier to remain in aura range. However, I could totally see us splitting up into combat squads, for instance deploying the Hellblasters through the Teleportarium, while using the intercessors to hold the backfield. It really depends on the rest of your list and how much mobility you need to get the Hellblasters where they need to be. Along those same lines, it can also be worth it to split the Hellblaster and Intercessors 3-2 and 2-3, mirroring the ablative wounds part on a smaller scale. The same approach also applies to the Indomitor Kill Team with Eradicators. There can be very good reasons to use either of the 3 methods depending on matchups, and for the third version in particular, it took me a while to wrap my head around the benefits. Basically, I think we are somehow wired to make these even splits by datasheets, though they may not always turn out to be the best. Do you really need 5 Eradicators shooting at the same target? More often than not, this can be complete overkill, and the kill team is better used in a split, where the heavy intercessors give some ablative wounds to 3 or 2 Eradicators each. As an even more extreme example, there might even be matchups where the heavy intercessors end up having the better profile, in which case you would remove the Eradicators first. Next, we have the Spectrus KT, where I think the usage of combat squads is almost always recommended, simply because a single of the mandatory infiltrators is enough to give the combat squad omni-scramblers. As a result, you can have 2 separate deep strike denial bubbles at the price of 1 minimum sized infiltrator squad. Good stuff. What I personally like to do is including 5 Eliminators, which are in a really great spot now with the reduced costs and the most recent balanced data slate. Just as a reminder, they can now snipe characters again, and the combination of Armor of Contempt and Camo Cloak allows them to still save on a 4+ against AP-4 while getting the benefits of Com. What I do recommend here is taking 5 Eliminators, then splitting 4 off with the Helix setup. The 5th Eliminator can go with the 4 Infiltrators. The options there are to keep him with the cheap sniper loadout and just have him act as a tank, or give him a Las Fusil and have an extra bit of punch for that combat squad. Then lastly, we have the Proteus Kill Team, where the options are of course near unlimited. I will try to stick to a few popular examples. The Costello-style Proteus Kill Team I already covered earlier. This one is best left intact. The same goes for the 3 Cyclone Missile Launcher Terminator builds. The idea here is to protect these expensive models with the cheaper wets. An excellent way to maximize combat squads, however, are the veteran bikers. By including at least 3 of them, we can make the combat squad T5 while giving them some additional datasheets like van vets for storm shields or Terminators as tank. Personally, I am particularly fond of the latter. 2 T5 Terminators in cover can be quite annoying to get rid of, and the combat squad has a surprisingly good range thanks to the longer biker bases. Perhaps having fallen a bit out of fashion as of late, but a friendly reminder that adding 5 Terminators or 5 van vets and then splitting them off into combat squads still makes them ObSec and allows them to be deployed through their unique abilities. The Deathwatch vets required to pull this off can for instance be kept cheap with shotgun and or bolt gun chainsword loadouts and used to guard an objective. Generally, combat squads in the Proteus Kill Team can also be a good way to handle different weapon types. Let's say you wanted to bring some heavy weapons on the wets, you can then just add some more powerful datasheets and split them off by combat squads. All in all, while I think that the design of a kill team tends to heavily influence the usage of combat squads or not, there are some cases where the matter is not obvious, and the good news is that you can always make a choice prior to the battle with all the necessary information about the game already available. To wrap things up, over the course of the video, we have taken a closer look at combat squads, an ability commonly available to Space Marines and Deathwatch. In order to use them, the units need to contain the maximum number of models, and the Rare Rules FAQ has clarified the ability to be used at the start of deployment and prior to using the Teleportarium stratagem. The advantages of using combat squads are many, but perhaps worth mentioning is that the secondary objective to the last has been changed to require both combat squads to be alive in order to get the full victory points, something that could be cheesed in the original version. For our kill teams, the Army of Renown and its Specialism Extremis stratagem in particular are a good reason to leave our kill teams as one big brick. Popular examples of this are the Indomitor KT with Aggressors and the single bolter Inceptor, as well as the Costello-style Proteus Kill Team. For the Fortis Kill Team with Assault Hellblasters and an Indomitor Kill Team with Eradicators in particular, there are multiple ways to run them, ranging anywhere from leaving them intact to splitting by datasheets or even mixing them. If you ask me about the one thing to take away from this video, it would be to try and get away from the mindset that we always split neatly by datasheets. There are good reasons to mix Intercessors and Hellblasters, or heavy Intercessors and Eradicators, or just giving a single Eliminator as a tank to a bunch of Infiltrators. Speaking of which, for the Spectrus KT in particular, combat squads are always a great idea. And finally, the Proteus Kill Team arguably has the most options. There you can do anything from Costello 10-man murder bricks, toughness 5 Terminators, or some ObSec van vets. Good stuff. Ultimately, while list building has a major impact on whether to combat squad or not, you will always have the final say prior to the game. With a lot of information available, use this to your advantage. So that's it for a practical approach to combat squads in the Deathwatch. How are you guys playing your kill teams, and which particular combos have been working out well for you? Have I forgotten any important combos or gotten any of the rules wrong? Let me know in the comments. Finally, I would also like to mention that there is a SwissHammer Facebook page where I will be posting links to my videos as well as articles I find of interest. I do read a lot about the hobby, but not all of it will always end up as its own video. I look forward to seeing you there as well. I do also have a Patreon page. If you like my content, any additional support is greatly appreciated as it helps me invest into future videos. As always, thank you very much for watching, guys. Your continued support is greatly appreciated. I hope you have been enjoying this video. Give me a thumbs up if you did, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks again and see you next time.